All right, guys, we're going to start with the next lesson, and we're going to start with what a pressure washer machine consists of, the different parts of it. Okay, so we're going to go through them one by one and talk about what's important, what's not important. We're going to touch a little bit on maintenance of a pressure washer and explain basically just how it really works, okay? So we're going to cover the different parts. We're going to look at a diagram to start with. So here we go. So a pressure washer, all of this could be considered the engine, okay? The engine provides power to the pump. So the pump is like inside here, right? It's inside the entire engine. And the pump is what generates the pressure by pushing the water through at a very high pounds per square inch rating. And again, so the pump is driven by the engine. The engine is all these parts working together. And this pump, with all its parts, needs to be maintained in certain ways. So you need to change the oil, the air cleaner. That needs to be cleaned every 3 months. Obviously, you need to have fuel. But for the most part, it's not the most difficult, and I'll walk you through all of that, okay? All right, so that's a basic overview. Let's go into the separate parts. We're going to start with the choke. The choke is right here. It's this little part. What a choke is basically it's used for starting and stopping the engine. And it provides a basic kick to the engine to get it started. If it's cold, it actually gives you more fuel rather than air so that the engine will at least get started. And when you're starting it, the choke needs to be all the way to closed. And if the temperature is high or the engine is warm for whatever reason, you don't need to have it closed. But generally it's closed. And there's also something called a fuel valve. I'll show you where that is in the machine. The fuel valve is right here. And this is something where if you're transporting the pressure washer from one place to another and it's not balanced, then what happens is fuel and oil can go into the different parts. They can mix together, and you really don't want that to happen. So this fuel valve exists to stop that from happening. It cuts off the fuel completely. You won't be able to use your pressure washer if this is off or closed. And that's what that is for. And if you're starting the pressure washer, you always want to make sure the fuel valve is obviously on the on position. The choke is closed. And then we have the throttle. So the throttle is this lever right here, which controls how much fuel is actually going into the pressure washer. You basically, when you're starting, you have it about halfway. And when you're running it, you basically want to have it go all the way. And when it's going all the way, you get the most pressure and you can get through jobs faster. Okay? So that's the throttle, just like any engine. But in this case, we're pumping water. We're pumping lots of water very fast. Okay, so next we're going to cover the spark plug. And this is basically something that's replaceable. What it does is it gives that initial spark to start the chemical reaction. So the chemical reaction in an engine on Earth is basically combustion. Combustion means something is burning. And what you're burning is fuel. You're mixing it with air and you're burning it, which causes explosions. These explosions, they go through the engine and they create that pressure that pushes through the pump, pushes the water. That's basically how an engine works. But the spark starts it all off. It creates that initial, let's say, explosion. And once that's started, then the engine will go. But these can get replaced if they wear or weather damage or whatever. But that's the spark plug. Next, we're going to cover the muffler. Okay, so the muffler is all of this chemical reaction that's going on in the engine, that's where it comes out. So the purpose of a muffler is actually to dampen the noise and help with the emissions, like everything coming out being less toxic for you and less toxic for the environment. That's the purpose of a muffler. So you always want to make sure the muffler is working. Now over here we have the air cleaner. This needs to be cleaned every 3 months. Basically what it does is it cleans the air before it enters your engine and becomes combustible. Like before it explodes, the air comes in and it's clean now. And because it's clean, it's free of harmful particles that could damage your engine or increase its wear and tear. So every 3 months, you clean this, and I'll show you how to do that in a later video where we go into maintenance. I'll show you that in more detail, but it's usually cleaned about every 3 months. Over here, you have an engine switch for on and off, very self-explanatory. Don't get confused by QAE. That's just something that Honda came up with. It just means quiet advanced engine, which we're not using. We're using a gas-powered engine, which is louder and more powerful. But that's the on-off switch, and it doesn't say it here, but you also have your, actually right here is the oil. That's where you fill the oil in, and this is a better picture if I'll show you that you can replace your oil. And you want to replace the oil, I guess there's no picture here, but you want to replace the oil roughly in your first month or 20 hours, and then every 6 months or 100 hours. But really, if you're putting use into your machine, you really want to do it about every 3 months. And to do that, you set a reminder on your phone. Hey, it's been 3 months, time to replace the oil. To replace the oil, you drain it using the drain plug, which I'll show you where that is. Okay, so here's the oil, and this is the dipstick, so you test it. So you take it out, it just twists off, and then you dry it, you put it in, and you see how much oil is in there or not. You know, if it's very low, obviously you got to put new oil in. To replace it, you take out the drain plug, which is this right here. And you can see it here in the diagram. That's the drain plug. You put that onto a tray. You get rid of the oil responsibly, or you have someone else do it to service your machine. And then you put fresh oil in. Now, a lot of pumps will need to do oil changes on the engine, but also on the pump, and that will be somewhere up here, and you'll see it. Different pumps are different, one to the next. You just have to look at what yours has. If it has another part where something should go in, that's generally oil. And it's the same thing. You also want to make sure, let's say every 3 months or so, to be on the safe side, you replace or refresh the oil, okay? And there will be a drain, and in this case, it looks like this. It will be similar for the pump, okay? All right, so then to start it, you have the starter grip. This is a recoil starter, which means you pull it, and then it recoils. The force goes back to where it was. Let me show you a picture of that. So if the engine is turned on, if the choke lever is all the way off, and the fuel valve, since you're not transporting it, it's level, that's to on, then you can start starting the engine. So starting the engine, there's a picture of it. The throttle goes to about halfway, okay? And then you get the starter grip and you give it a pull, and it should start. And then after a little bit, you release the choke lever so it's open after it's warmed up, and then you put the throttle as far as you need it. Okay? And then to stop the engine, you gently release the throttle all the way down so it starts slowing down, and then you just switch the engine to off. And again, this is not a QAE, in other words, electric. It's not a quiet advanced engine. Electric is just not powerful enough for what you're going to do. And then you can turn the fuel valve to off if you're driving it around and it's going to be uneven. All right, so let's take a little bit look at maintenance. But before we do that, there's something that's not mentioned in this diagram, and that's these valves right here. So a valve is basically a device for controlling how much or how little something passes through something. So in this case, how much air and gasoline is passing through, and then how much exhaust is passing the other way, how much of it. And the valves need to be adjusted every once a year or so. And you open up this panel. I'm going to show you in a video how to do that later, but you can also just bring it to someone who works with engines, and they can adjust it for you if you've never done it before. But these valves, these valve adjusters, they need to be taken care of. If you don't adjust them, it's going to affect the overall performance of your engine. Over time, it will wear it faster because the exhaust is going to go back into the engine and such. And also, when you start pulling on the starter grip and stuff, you start feeling it. It's very hard to start it all of a sudden. If you're wondering why that is, well, it's just because you haven't adjusted your valves. And you just adjust your valves, and you'll be good to go. Your engine will last you forever. This is a Honda. They generally last for a very, very long time. They're very reliable. And that's about it. You have a few other parts where the water intake, like the water from the garden hose, comes in. But other than that, those are your basic, most important parts of the pressure washer that you need to know. And again, you do need to maintain it. It is important to keep it up. That way you have a longevity for the machine. You don't need to keep replacing them. Also, if you have a spare, you still need to replace that oil in the spare. But that's about it. And now we're going to go on to the next lesson. All right. Thanks.